Please remember that the complete information for the class that you are about to view is at elithecomputerguy.com. Not only do we have our videos there, but we have part lists, diagrams, pictures, and even complete code examples. So if you are watching this video and you want more information, please go to elithecomputerguy.com. Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the Computer Guy, and in today's class, we're going to be talking about the string position function within PHP. So the string position function, or the strpos function, allows you to see if a word is in a string, and you can also see where that word is within the string. So this can be very valuable for you if you're going to be parsing strings for any number of reasons with your PHP code. So if you're going to be doing something such as reading through a text file or possibly a log file, if you're going to be doing something that we do a lot of times in our projects is we're going to be using the exec command. So basically we're going to be sending a command to the Linux operating system, and then we'll be receiving a response back, such as the example I'm going to show you today using the IP address command in order to pull back the IP address. Basically using the strpos function, what you can do is you can parse the strings that are provided for you and then be able to test against it. So in the examples that I'm going to be showing you today, I'm simply going to be printing out when a line has a word in it that we're interested in, but you could also do other if-else statements to basically test to see if a word or a string of text is within the string you're testing on, and if so, then do something. So we're going to be talking about the strpos, the string position function today, and this is an incredibly valuable tool if you are going to be parsing strings within the PHP world. So the strpos function in PHP, like most functions in PHP, is relatively easy to use. This is one of those easy to use functions where if you use it right, you can really add a lot of functionality to your web app as long as you understand what's going on. So in the examples that I'm going to be giving to you today, we're going to be doing three different examples. The first is we're simply going to have a string. So we're going to have a string, it's going to be a variable, and then what I want to do is I want to simply print out the position of a term or a word that we're looking for in the string. So basically we're going to have a string. That string is going to have a name in it, Bob, and I simply want to know what position Bob shows up in the string, and so we're going to simply print that out. So it's going to simply say Bob is at this position in the string. The next thing that we're going to do with the strpos function in PHP is we're going to use for each to loop through a standard array. So I'm going to have a standard array of names. So think about this like some kind of contact system, something like that. And basically there are a number of different names in the array, and then we're going to test against all of those different names in the array. And if one of those names has a term that we're looking for in the name, then that will simply print out on the screen. So imagine if you had 20 different names in an array, but you only want one of the names to actually show up with all the additional information. Basically, you could simply loop through and go, oh, okay, this is the name that we're looking for. This is the only name that we'll print out on the screen. The final demonstration that I'm going to show you is a little bit more sophisticated, tiny little bit more sophisticated. We're going to use the exec command. So with the exec command, you can actually send a command directly to the host operating system. And so we're going to send the command IP address to our Linux box in order to get back all of the IP information for our server. Well, the thing is here, right? The thing is, we don't want all that information. If you ever do IP address, you're going to get a whole bunch of information, a whole lot of different lines. And in reality, we don't want all of that information. All we want is simply what the IP address is, just the IP address for our particular server. So what's going to happen is when you use the exec command, you feed it the shell command that you want to send to the operating system, and then the results, basically what gets returned in an array. So every line that gets returned from the operating system is a key, basically a value in an array. And then what we're going to do is we're going to simply step through that array and look for where it talks about the IP address. Basically the inet is what we're going to search for, and we're simply going to say only print out a line that has inet in it, and then it will only print out the two lines, the loopback address and the actual IP address for the server, and it will only give us that particular information that we're looking for. So with that, let's go over. I just want to show you the demonstration really quickly, and then we'll go and we'll take a look at the code, and I'll explain how it all works. So here we are at my demonstration machine. Again, for this, it doesn't really matter what kind of computer you're using. All we need to do is be able to connect to our web server. 10.0.1.10 is my web server, and be able to connect to the script that I've created, strpos.php. These are simply the results here. So if you don't quite understand what's going on, that's okay. I want to show you the results, then I'll show you the code, then we'll flip back and forth a little bit. So here, basically, we're going to be looking for, we're going to have a string, and in the string, it's going to say, hello, Bill Bob, and we simply want to know what the position is for Bob in that string. So basically what this is saying is Bob is at the 11th position. So again, since you can now turn this information into a variable, you could then test against it if you wanted to. You have to think about why you want to test against it, but you could do something like test against where a name, where a word shows up within a string. The next thing that we have here is basically I have a full array. So I have an array with Jim Bob, Tim, Tom, and Frankfurter. And so basically I only want to print out the name that has Bob in it. So here it is only printing out Jim Bob. Again, so imagine if you have a list of 10, 20, 5,000 names or 5,000 different strings, and you only want to print out the ones that have the information that you're looking for. This is simply printing out that. Then finally down here, this is where we use that exec command. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm sending the exec command to the operating system, to the Linux operating system, and then it's returning all of the information for the IP address. So we send the IP address command to the Linux operating system, and then we get a whole bunch of information back. I don't really care about all that additional information. All I'm looking for is the specific IP address. So here, it's giving me the inet for 127.0.0.1. That's called your loopback address. All systems have it, but then here what's more important is it's then giving me the actual IP address of 10.0.1.10 with a /24 or a type C subnet. So it's giving me that information. And again, this might be useful for you if you're creating dashboards or something like that, where you want to be able to send commands to your Linux operating system. You want to be able to pull out specific information, IP addresses, default gateways, I don't know, rules possibly in your firewall, something like that, and then you only want to print out on the screen the specific information. You don't want to print out literally everything that the operating system gives you. So with that, let's go over and take a look at the code. So here we are at my server. Again, my server is Ubuntu 18.04 LTS, and I'm using the graphical user interface, the desktop version, simply so it's easier for you to visualize what I'm doing here. I am using VS Code in order to actually write the code. Most of what I'm showing you today should work on any distribution, any version of Linux. The only thing that you might run into a little problem with is down here with the exec command. Sometimes, depending on what permissions you have set up on your Linux server, this down here may not work. So the important thing to understand is the first two examples should work on basically any LAMP server that you're going to be running this on. The final one, if you have an issue with this exec command, that may be some kind of permission issue with your particular server. Have fun taking a look at Google and figuring out what the problem is. But anyways, let's just take a look at this. So with this, the way that I wrote this code is basically I wrote the code into 3 different blocks, so everything is pretty self-contained within the block, so that I don't have to jump around in the code to explain what's going on. So what we're going to do here is we're going to open up the PHP like we normally do. Then we're going to create a string. So the string that we're going to create is going to say, hello, Bill Bob. So this could be as long as you want. The string, remember, when you're dealing with strings could be like 50 pages long, right? As long as it's all one, continuous blob of text, it can be a string. So again, that's why it might be valuable to know a position. Imagine if you have a book or if you had a chapter, and so you wanted to be able to have people search and find where in that chapter a particular word is, right? Having that position at that point may be valuable. Again, if you're sitting here looking at hello Bill Bob, you may be thinking, well, why do I care that Bob is at position 11? That doesn't really matter to me. Imagine if this is a book, right? Imagine if this is basically 200 pages and you're looking for when certain words or certain names show up in that book. You could actually feed the names or the information that you're looking for into strpos, feed that entire book into the script, and then it could tell you where those specific positions were. And then once you have those specific positions, then you could write code to maybe create basically dynamic hyperlinks to jump to those locations, so on and so forth. So this is a very small string, but it's just a placeholder. You can do more complicated things. Anyway, so we have a string here, basically just says, hello, Bill Bob. We're going to have the test word. So basically the test word is just the word that we're going to be looking for. And so I just want to know where Bob is in this particular string. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable for position. So basically this is going to be tell me the numeric position of where this word shows up in the string. And then in order to get the numeric position, we're going to call the strpos function. We're then going to feed it the string. So the first thing that we do is feed it the string, comma, then we feed it what we're looking for. So the first thing is hello Bill Bob, and then the second thing is Bob. So that's how we do it. Then we come down here and we simply say echo test word. So whatever the word we're looking for is at position, and then basically whatever position it starts at within the string. If we go over, we take a look at the demonstration. Then we can see again the test word is Bob and it starts at position 11. Again, pretty simple here, nothing too complicated, but again, think about if you're feeding a paragraph, a book, a whole blog post, something like that. That's where the position can be very useful. Past that, we're then gonna basically do two breaks. Break everything, break the lines, so there's a little bit of space between the examples. The next thing that we're going to do then is we're going to simply create an array. So we're going to create a standard array. So $array equals, we're creating the array, Jim Bob, Tim Tom, and Frankfurter. So again, this array could be a lot bigger. We're just putting 3 names there to make life easier. And so with this, basically all I want to do is I want to print out the name of whoever is going to be Bob, right? So basically I have this list, and if Bob shows up in the name, I want that printed out. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say for each, so this is going to loop through the array as name. So we're going to pass the array into the for each, and then for the array, for all the values in the array, they're going to be turned over to name. And then we're going to say if strpos name, so that's here, right? So that's these. Right, these go into the array, then here breaks them out of the array into the name, and so we're testing. So when that value comes up, and then what you can do here, instead of simply putting in a variable, you can do double quotation marks Bob, double quotation marks. So you can put whatever word you want here. So this is currently Bob, and then we close the parentheses, equals true. So double equal sign, not triple, just double. Just double, you only need 2 here. If it equals true, then we're simply going to echo out the name. So basically we're going to say if within the name is Bob. So if that's true, we're going to echo out the name. So if we go and we take a look at the example, we can see that Jim Bob is the only name with Bob in the name. Again, just to show you how this can change. Let's say we wanted to make this Tom. So now we just simply want to take a look at Tom. We do file, we do save, we go over to the demonstration machine. And from here, we do refresh, and now Tim Tom is showing up. Again, that's just a simple way to be able to search through names or lists, so on and so forth. Then the final one, we're going to come down here. Again, we're going to break between the 2 examples, and then we're going to use the exec command. So again, the exec function, this allows you to send a command directly to the underlying operating system. As long as you have the permissions, as long as everything's right, that command will fire off. And then what happens is you then get the results, you get the return of that command, and that will be turned into an array. So we're using the exec function. We're going to be simply sending IP address. So if you have an older Linux distribution, you might want to put ifconfig here. So ifconfig would work in an older distribution. With Ubuntu 18.04, it uses IP for its IP address tool. So we're simply using the IP tool and then asking what the address is. The value that gets returned from that is then going to be put into the variable called $exec, and basically that value is an array. So every line in the IP address return is one value in the array. So if we go and let's say we do clear, and so IP address, right? So this is the standard IP address. So this is everything that's going to get returned from IP address when you send it to the operating system. The important thing though is we simply want to go through and we want to look for the information that we actually care about, right? So that's where we're looking for inet 10.0.1.24. So basically we are interested in this particular line here. And then with that line, we get this particular line here. You could do some additional if-else's and get rid of that loopback address if you didn't want to, but basically I just want to be able to print out the IP address. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to simply be looking for INET. This is an important thing if you're going to be using the strpos function, is when you're going to be trying to parse a string, especially if you're going to be parsing returns from Linux commands. One of the most important things is figuring out what in the return you're always going to get, or will only get when you want it, right? So again, for me being able to print out this particular line, right, the IP address, if I put this on a different server, or if I gave this a different IP address, right, if I was simply looking for 10.0.1.10, well, that wouldn't work if that's not necessarily the IP address, right? When you go through, if I did scope, then I would also get the IP6 IP address. If you do these other words, you might get other issues. You know, no prefix route, or this is for the actual network card. So one of the things, again, if you're going to be parsing through strings, you're going to be parsing through returns, is you really have to figure out what are you trying to test against. So what we're going to try to test against today is simply INET. So basically we're going to look for INET. If INET shows up in one of the lines, one of the values in the array, we want to print that out. If not, we don't want to print it out. So let's go back. And so what we're going to do here is we have a search term, so basically the term that we're looking for. And for this, I decided to do INET and then space. And again, that's an important thing. Like when you're doing a search term, white space matters. So how much white space you put in there. So putting INET space gave me a better result than simply putting INET. Then we're going to simply go for each and then exec. So basically what comes back from the executable as line, so we're simply stepping through this, and then if strpos line, so right, if one of those line values equals the search term, right, equals true, then we're going to echo out what that line is, right? So then if we go back and we take a look, we can see again INET. So basically if INET is in the line, then we want that entire line to be printed out. Again, if we go back, you think about things like white space. Again, when I didn't have the white space, I do this, I hit file, I hit save. What you'll notice is I will get now more returns because there's more things that are equal to that. So since I didn't have any white space, right, then it's only looking for INET. So INET, and then INET. So this is both giving me the IP4 address and the IP6 address. Again, that's a question that you have to ask yourself. Do you want the IP6 address? Does the IP6 address matter to you? If it does, then don't put any white space around the INET. If it doesn't, then by simply adding that white space, by simply putting that extra space, now it's going to look for INET with a space afterwards. As soon as we do that, we hit save. Then we can refine our results just a tiny bit better. And so again, this is why this is one of those things where the function itself is relatively easy. Obviously, it's dirt simple. The function is dirt simple. How you implement the function in your application, that's where it can get very complicated. Is again trying to figure out the very, very, very specific things that you're looking for and that you want to test against, and that will work, time and time and time again. So this is basically all there is to the string position. Again, you can get back the position. So if you want the position of a word or what you're searching for in a string, you can do that. Again, when we're talking about a string, this doesn't have to be a sentence. It could be a whole book. So this could tell you, at position 25,000 or something like that. So you can find the position, do with it as you will, or you can step through an array and actually just print out specific information from that array. Or again, with the array, you can do things such as step through what gets returned back from your operating system and then only print that out on the screen. So that's how strpos function works. So now you know how the strpos function works, the string position. Again, very simple little function, but this can be very, very valuable for whatever application that you're going to be creating. Again, many times when you're creating web applications, the fact of the matter is you're going to have to parse through strings. Basically, you're going to have a whole bunch of information, and then you have to be able to show the end user only the information that they care about. Again, it's kind of like with that IP address command that I showed you using the exec function. function. If you return back all of the information from that command, right, that takes up half the screen, and most users aren't going to know what the hell to do with it, right? They're just going to be like, what do I do with that? Where, again, if you only print out what the actual IP addresses are, that's something that's a lot more useful to the end user. Again, it's a very important thing when you're designing these applications that you don't simply design the application to just give the end users what they're asking for. That's what some coders do, right? The end user gets what they asked for and a whole bunch more. Right? And you have to think, the end user has a lot of stuff to do. The end user doesn't want to figure out all this gobbledygook, right? They're an accountant, they're a lawyer, they're a CEO. They don't want to have to know what information is important and what information isn't important. One of your jobs as a coder is to only present the information that the end user actually needs, or possibly that the code actually needs. And so this is a way that you can simply, again, you can only print out the IP address, or you can only print out the record that is of interest to them. You can do that type of thing by using the strpos function in PHP. So with that, go out there, play with it. Again, mess around. The function itself is easy. How you implement it in the real world can get a lot more complicated. As always, I enjoy doing this class. Look forward to seeing you at the next one. If you like the content that I create, please think about going to elithecomputerguy.com and becoming a member or donating. Please understand that all of the educational videos are in front of the paywall. That includes the videos, that includes the notes, the diagrams, and the code example. All of that is freely available and in front of the paywall. But if you want to watch opinion videos, or if you want to be able to comment, you do need to become a member. Membership is $5 a month or $60 a year and gives you access to those opinion videos and the ability to comment. If you don't want to become a member, you just want to give a one-time donation, there's also a donate button where you can do that. Please understand, in order to provide the education that I am, it does cost money. Servers cost money, equipment costs money, travel costs money. All of these things cost a reasonable amount of money, and the fact of the matter is YouTube's advertising program no longer supports creators the way that it used to. So if you want these classes to continue to stick around and you find them to be valuable, please think about either becoming a monthly member or donating a few dollars for this project.